1, and we are live. Welcome everyone who joining us. I'm super happy to see this huge amount of people joining us tonight. We're gonna have a few minutes to let everyone enter, and meanwhile, feel free to introduce yourself, send us a message in the chat where you're from joining, and if you have any specific questions, you also can drop it in a Q&A section. You can write how many years you are in Israel or where you are watching us from, what is your employment position. And right after that, I will introduce our speakers and myself as well. So feel free to drop us some messages in the chat. I already actually see a few messages. Hi, Melissa, originally from New Jersey, made Aliyah 3 years ago and have recently started first position in high-tech as a content specialist. Wow. First of all, congratulations, Melissa. We are super happy to have you here. And we also have Andrei from Ukraine, arrived to Israel less than a year ago, found the position and was laid off within 4 months. Wow, that's a difficult situation. We're going to talk specifically about situations like that. We're going to cover that today. Okay, the chat is off for now. This is what Svetlana is telling me. Thank you so much. Andrew, could you take a look, please, just to make sure that the chat is working properly? Maybe
Sure.
it's off for few attendees. If it's going to be off, no problem. We have a Q&A section where you also can send us messages. So while we are waiting, again, feel free to drop us a message in a Q&A section and think about the questions you would like to ask. And you can introduce yourself as well. Let me see if the chat is working. We're gonna wait for a few more minutes so you have a chance to grab tea or coffee and enjoy our webinar.
Anna, just double checking, is the chat working for you? I just want to make sure.
Few more minutes, the technical things, even though we all work in a high tech, this is something that's happening. Yeah, working for me.
Okay, great.
But maybe if someone of attendees can check it and let us know, that would be great. If it's working or not for everyone. Oh, I see the thumbs up. Great. Okay, we have Svetlana, front-end developer with 3 years of experience, looking forward to making an Aliyah with husband. One C dev, trying to switch to Java, but still in Russia for now. Hi, Svetlana. I think you will get a lot of valuable information today on the webinar. We have Dana Gazen. I hope that I pronounced it correctly. Hi, Dana. I'm half German, half Spanish. In 2021, I had enough chutzpah to decide to move to Israel. Kol hakavod. Chutzpah, it's like a very good skill. Mid-level hands-on person, MBA graduate with an optimistic and disciplined mindset. In my latest professional experience as a project manager, ownership, Spanish markets, working across all departments. Wow, it looks like you have like very, very good experience. You know what, if chat is still unavailable, again, feel free just to drop the messages in Q&A section. I will read all of them. So I think without further ado, let's move forward and share today's agenda and speakers. So tonight we're going to talk about how to survive the recession and lays off in high tech in Israel. So we will help you to answer questions like, If there is a recession, what should I need to prepare for? Will recession hit Israel, or it's already here, it's already happening? And very practical question, for example, if I was laid off, what I need to get from my employer? And to answer these questions, I will invite our amazing panelists. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you that you decided to join and spend this amazing evening with us, with our community. First of all, I would like to introduce Jonathan Mandelbaum, principal at Tel Aviv Partners. Jonathan will talk about what is recession, what is the current perception in the VC ecosystem. The second speaker will be Moria Roger, founder and lawyer. She will help us on the legal stuff, legal rights at our workplace. And the third speaker is Tamar Eisenberg-Abramson, community team lead at RiseUp. She will talk about tangible personal financial tips and how to navigate and survive a recession. And my name is Anna Levitin. I'm your moderator today. I'm a Masa alumni and Nevo fellow. I made Aliyah 5 years ago from St. Petersburg, Russia. So, shalom, good evening, buenos dias, tardes, всем привет. We have a lot of languages together. So I also would like to thank you everyone who helped us in organizing this fascinating event and who is like behind the scenes. Michael Eisenberg, Lorena Feldman, Abby On, Mayan Rabinovich, Andrew Didas, Jonathan Mechnik, and Aaron Barras. And a special thank you for organization that supported us. First of all, it's Nevo Network. Nevo is a community of top talented Olims, mentors, and supporters who are committed to creating impact in the Israeli high-tech ecosystem. And I personally myself as a Nevo fellow from cohort number 3, and I can't recommend it more. And this specific event was organized by our alumni board that working on the professional development for the broader community of all Olims. Thank you to Masa Israel Journey. I guess a lot of you are familiar with that. It's Masa offers 2 or 10-month programs for young Jewish adults. And Masa has an actually fascinating Masa community that supports alumni and Masa fellows. And Andrew, the community manager, he'll share a link how you can join and learn more about Masa community. Thank you, Reboot Startup Nation and Goyim. And I just reminded that at the very end, we will have time for Q&A. So feel free to drop your questions in a section. And as chart is working, feel free to introduce yourself also in a chart, you know, how many years you were in Israel. And actually, let's release the poll just to understand how many years you're in Israel. And yes, this webinar will be recorded. Stay tuned. You will receive the recording shortly. Follow us on social media. So just to understand, we have a lot of people that less than 6 months in Israel. Let's give it just a few more seconds, and all of us will see the results of this poll. Wow, it's impressive. 34% less than 6 months. Amazing. Let's give it a few minutes, and then I will release the poll. So our first speaker, Jonathan Mandelbaum. Jonathan is an investing principal at Tel Aviv Partners, an early stage VC based here in Israel that manages $850 million. He has been with the firm since 2014, but working in VC since 2014. 2017, 2014, my apologies. And Jonathan made Aliyah from Cleveland, Ohio, and was a combat commander in the IDF. Wow, that's impressive. So Jonathan, mic is yours. Tell us more about what is recession.
Okay, thanks, Anna, and hi, everybody. Really happy to be here, and hopefully this will be an interesting conversation. And just before I get into the introduction, I think that everyone might be in suspense from sort of the question that was the tagline of this event, which is how to survive a recession. And so really quickly, I just want to let everybody know that you will survive. Everybody will be okay. This is not life and death. This obviously our jobs are important and a very important part of our lives, but everybody's going to be okay. So it's important to remember that slight sliver of optimism before I'm about to get quite negative and pessimistic. And I apologize in advance about that, but please do keep that in mind. And so a quick other caveat or two before sort of I go into my spiel. The first thing is that I've never been through a recession before. So you maybe don't listen to me. I was in high school during the great financial crisis in 2008. And I started working, as Anna mentioned, in venture capital in 2014. And pretty much in venture capital since I joined, it's been mostly rainbows and butterflies, which has been great. But this is definitely the first time that I've experienced this as well. And so everything that I'm saying is mostly conjecture, maybe educated guesses or educated opinions based on conversations that I've had and people that I've spoken to that have been through this in the past, but I might be completely wrong. So please take that with a grain of salt. And of course, in addition to that, every company is different, every individual is different. And so I'm going to talk in generalizations, but of course, take certain parts of that as they're relevant for you individually, but also know that not everything that I say is going to be relevant for everyone. And so with that, I'll quickly sort of start diving in. I don't have an official presentation. I have one slide that I'll bring up in a second, but mostly I'm just going to talk and hopefully that's okay. And there are questions at the end if there are. And so let's get into it. And so the first thing is, what is a recession? And the technical term for that is, in my opinion, not so important, but it's the technical sort of meaning is when there's 2 consecutive quarters, so 6 months of negative GDP growth. So when the economy isn't growing for 2 consecutive quarters. Does that really matter for this conversation? Not really. The point is the economy is not doing very well, of course, right? And so then how does that really affect sort of the high-tech world? How does that affect Israel? Well, first of all, from my perspective, I think that I have an interesting sort of glance into this because I work at a venture capital firm, TLV Partners. We invest only at the early stages. So we only invest in seed companies and Series A companies. So companies that are usually 10 to 20 people. They don't really have revenue yet. They're just growing. However, we've been doing this since 2016. And so we have 45 active companies in the portfolio. We have about 50% of our companies that we work with are later than Series B, have anywhere between 100 and 1,000 employees, real revenue, real businesses. And then we also have 50% of our companies that are super early stage still. And of course, a recession or sort of an environment like the one that we're going through now affects all of these companies in different ways. And it's interesting to keep in mind, based on the companies that you work at or that you're going to be working at, sort of how a recession affects different stages of company. And so again, let's just take a look sort of on the macro sense, sort of what's happening. Again, so we went through the technical definition of a recession, but what's interesting is that technically Israel isn't in a recession. If you guys read the newspapers or hear a little bit about that, the US is in a recession. And the reason why that's relevant is because for most other people living in Israel who do not work in high tech, they might not even know anything about a recession or a bad market or a bad climate. And if you start talking about it with them, they might think that you're crazy or talking about something that doesn't exist. And so to understand why that's the case is because all of you work at startups, or a lot of you guys work in high tech in Israel. And as you all know, most of the companies are selling to customers in the United States. And so from a high tech perspective, the companies in Israel are super closely tied to the US economy. And you can almost think of Israel as like a 51st state from that perspective. It's obviously not, but from like an economic perspective, we're so heavily reliant on what happens in the United States that if the United States is going through a recession, so the high tech sector goes through a recession as well. Of course, it does happen at a little bit of a delay. So we're about 3 to 6 months behind what's happening in the US, and that will become relevant, as I continue speaking as well. But that's just what to understand, that even though Israel's officially not in a recession, we're much more closely tied to the US from a high tech perspective. But let's now just drill deep into a second into how this affects actual startups, because a recession just means that the economy is not growing that much. And so what happened, I'm not going to get into all of these sort of technicalities of this. There are smarter people than me that have written blog posts and articles and books about sort of what causes the recession and what happened. But pretty much over the last couple of years, software companies specifically have been valued very, very, very highly. And a really sort of simple way to value tech companies is some type of multiple of their revenue. And if you look at a couple of years ago, even as recently as last year, the average software company was valued at 20 times their revenue, right? So if you had $10 million of revenue, you're valued at $200 million. That was sort of the average, and again, average. So there were companies that were valued at higher than that, companies that were valued lower than that. Today, the average is 5.5 times revenue. So a significant decrease. And this is happening in the public markets, publicly traded companies. And so again, publicly traded companies, venture capitalists, we invest in private companies. Most of you probably work at private companies, although some of you might work at publicly traded companies as well. And the question is, what's the VC perspective on this, and why does it really affect the early stages? Well, let's take a look at the math for a second, understand just why this really affects, just because the public markets are doing worse, why does that affect the private market? So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. It's not an impressive slide at all, so please forgive me. And so you see right here, we have our friendly little company called Sunicorn, that in 2021, they really thought they were on the path to becoming a unicorn, hence the name, very cheesy, I know. They had $25 million in revenue in 2021. And like I mentioned, in 2021, these companies were raising money at around an average of 20 times their revenue. So their valuation was $500 million, okay? Seems simple. But then what happened is that 2022 strolled along and the market started to tank, and valuations now on average were going to, like I mentioned, 5.5. And this company actually doubled their revenue to $50 million. And for those of you that work at companies, that is very, very difficult to do, to go from $25 million to $50 million in 1 year. And even though they did that, now let's say that they're a little bit above average because they grew so quickly. So we're not going to give them a 5x revenue multiple. We'll give them a 7.5 revenue multiple, 7.5 times the revenue. That's only $375 million from a valuation perspective. And last time I checked, 500 million is larger than 375 million. So companies can't really raise money at their last valuation, but maybe that's okay. Let's say, you know what, they don't have to raise money in 2022 because they already raised money before that. So they'll wait until 2023. And in 2023, look, growing from 50 million to 100 million, doubling it again, probably unrealistic. But let's say they do really well and they grow revenue to $75 million. So again, amazing. From 2021 to 2023, they grew revenue from 25 to 75 million. Most companies do not do this, but this is a fantastic company. But still, in 2023, which is right around the corner, it's a month from now, let's say that their revenue multiple still isn't 5, but it's not going to be 7.5 because they didn't grow, they didn't double revenue, they less than doubled revenue. Let's give them a 6.5 revenue multiple. Well, their valuation still is less than $500 million. And so they won't be able to raise money based on the valuation that they raised money at in 2021. And so hopefully that math was okay. And it's of course incredibly simplified and it's not an exact science, but this shows why it's incredibly hard for companies to raise money, not just now, but it's going to be difficult for companies to raise money next year as well. And so what are VCs telling our companies? Well, we're telling the companies that we invested in, look, you can't raise money this year. You're not going to be able to raise money next year. You have to make sure that you have enough money, you have enough capital to stay alive until somewhere during 2024, maybe halfway through 2024, maybe the end of 2024. The only way to make sure that they have enough money to do that is to start cutting costs. And unfortunately, the only way to really cut costs dramatically at a startup is to lay people off, is to let people go. And that's really sort of where this entire idea of layoffs is coming from. You can blame me, you can blame my colleagues, you can blame people that raise money at too high valuations, whatever you want to do. But unfortunately, that's the case. And that's why these companies are laying people off. So again, let's get back to our overarching question, sort of how do you survive, right? So, and again, the super simple answer is you're all going to survive. It's all going to be okay in the grand scheme of things. But the more practical answer is, let's just understand, first of all, that it's completely out of your control, right? And so if you do get laid off, this might not help you feel any better, but this is a very legitimate case of it's not you, it's me. It's an actual case of that where, this is just out of your hands and there's not much you can do about it. So don't take it too personally. I know that in the moment that's going to be very difficult to do, but it's important to keep that in mind, and maybe it's at some point that'll give you some comfort. But second, and this is a little bit more practical, and it might be an unpopular opinion, but this is the time to make yourself completely indispensable to the companies and to the managers that you work for. And what I mean by that is that this is probably literally the opposite of 2020 and 2021. This is not a time for work-life balance. This is not a time for working from home. This is not a time to ask for a raise. This is a time to show up to the office as much as possible every day if you can. Show your manager, show the people that you're working for that you are there, that you're willing to put in the work. Do not ask for a raise sort of as the year is coming to a close, coming up next year, because I promise you, you are stressed, and I'm sure you're stressed. Everybody is stressed. The people that you work for are more stressed, okay? And so you need to make sure that you can somehow convince the people that you work for that you are ready to go to war with them, because that's what they need. This is an incredibly difficult time to build a company and to keep the company alive. And the only thing that they're going to be thinking about when they're considering layoffs or not laying off people is, who do we absolutely need to keep on this team? Because without them, we won't be able to accomplish our goals. And so what that also means is maybe go to your manager and say, hey, is there anything else that I can take onto my plate? Can I do anything else? Volunteer if you have the ability. I know a lot of you, I'm sure, are already working incredibly hard and can't offer that, and that's okay. But again, it's show up, it's working as hard as you can, and realizing that for the next 3, 6, 9, maybe even 12 months, it's not the best time to take a vacation, not the best time to work from home on a Tuesday because you just don't feel like going to work that day. So those are like the practical things that are I know are difficult maybe to hear, but I think it's really, really important that you do those things if you want to really try to make sure that you maintain sort of this really strong position in the companies that you work for. Now let's talk about, let's say if you do get laid off. So how do you go about that? Well, if you do get laid off, it's unfortunate, but it's going to be harder to get a new job because companies are laying off people and they're not rehiring people. So there are going to be less open positions. And so if you're thinking about it though, the companies that I would specifically try to think about going after is go to your favorite tech website, whether that's TechCrunch in the US or The Marker or Calcalist or Geek Time, and look for any company that's raised over $50 million in the last 12 months. Those companies probably have enough money and they're still hiring a little bit. And so create a list of those companies, create a list of contacts that can somehow introduce you to someone at those companies, and really focus on trying to get introduced to those companies to find a new job, because those are the ones that are likely to be still hiring, even though they're in the current situation. And then beyond that, get noticed. Everyone says network, and of course networking is important, but I think also you'll start seeing that people that are in hiring positions don't have time to be networking in the next couple of months. And so I don't know how productive that's going to be, but start a blog, start a podcast, start a TikTok account, a Twitter account about something that's relevant for your area of work, and start trying to get noticed somehow. And hopefully things will play out from there. And that's the advice that I can give from that perspective. And I would say from like a timing perspective, I have no idea how long this is going to last for. I think that anybody who tells you that they do is lying. But if you look historically, it usually takes about a year to a year and a half, maybe up to 2 years for the market to come back to where it was. So let's say like plan for this to last until at least sometime in 2024. But I honestly have no idea. And maybe in 2 months from now, we'll all be talking again, and we'll be talking about how to thrive in the opposite of a recession. I have no idea. Hopefully, I hope for all of us that we're having that conversation. So that's from that perspective. And then there are just like 2 last things that I wanted to touch on. So first of all is, how can you identify if maybe your company is like about to have layoffs? Does it come out of nowhere, or can you identify it? A really good way of identifying it is, has your company done layoffs yet? Because if they haven't, they're going to. So like, you should just know that. It's really unfortunate to say, but about 95% of the companies in Israel are going to do layoffs sometime in the next 6 months if they haven't. It's just the fact of the matter, and I apologize to be the bearer of bad news if that's the case. And so if they haven't done layoffs yet, then you should know that your company is definitely going to be doing one and is discussing one right now. Whether, even if they don't need to, VCs like me, we're just not very nice, unfortunately, and we're telling all of our companies to save money as much as possible and to do layoffs. So it's going to start happening. Another thing that I would just recommend, and I know this sometimes might be uncomfortable, but approach your founders, approach the executives at your company, and just ask for transparency. The great leaders will give you that transparency, and they'll tell you, hey, here's how much money we have in the bank. Here's the last time we raised money. Here's when we're trying to raise money. Here's when we're going to start doing that. And hopefully that'll give you at least some knowledge of what's happening. And if your executives are not sharing that information with you, then that's also a sign that there are probably going to be layoffs. So that's another way of sort of, finding that out. And then I think just one last thing that I was asked to speak about is, have VCs stopped investing? And the answer is no, especially at the early stages. We're still investing in companies. specifically at the early stages, I will say, because again, at an early stage company, they don't even have revenue yet. The valuations are usually lower. And it takes, a year or two for these companies to even get off the ground. And so the idea is that we're investing in companies today that won't have to raise money anyways for the next 2 years. And hopefully the market will be better by then. But the real question is, if you work at a company that's after Series A, they're Series B, Series C, Series D, maybe they're a public company already. Is there any way for them to raise more money? And what I will say is that in my 8-year career in VC, I have never seen the markets as quiet as they are right now. VCs want to be investing, but the math just doesn't work, as we went through really quickly. The math just simply doesn't work. Nobody wants to raise what's called a down round, which is raising at a lower valuation. It's a little bit, the mechanics are a little bit complicated. I'm not going to get into that, but we can afterwards if anybody's interested. And so VCs are, in theory, still open for business, still investing, but at the later stages, it's pretty quiet, and the most quiet that I've ever seen it. So unfortunately, I had some pretty pessimistic news, and I apologize for that, but hopefully some practical tips as well. And again, I will reiterate for the third time that everything is going to be okay. It is not a life or death question here of survival or not survival. And the markets, this is all cyclical. It happened in 2001, it happened in 2008, it happened in 2022, and we're all going to get back to a much better position. So with that, I think there are going to be questions at the end of the webinar. So feel free to stick around. I'll be here as well. And of course, you guys can, if anybody has other questions, feel free to LinkedIn with me. You can email me at just my first name, Jonathan @tlv.partners, and I'll hand it back to Anna from there.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I literally was scheduling, a call with my co-founders because it's a great advice about transparency. Before we're moving forward, I would like to run another poll about your employment situation. Have you been recently laid off or not, just to understand our attendees today? And I think I saw a few relevant questions, or I will give it a time in the very end of the session, and I encourage you to write all the questions in Q&A section. Unfortunately, we are not able to give a mic to everyone. Okay, so I'm not working in Israel at the moment, 51%, yeah, just 3% were laid off. Let's give it another minute. And before we're moving forward, I also want to say that this specific session, it's the first one of the whole series. So I encourage you to write in a chat what topics are interesting for you, what you would like us to prepare, even if it's about CV preparation, interview, or any pain points you feel while developing your career here in Israel. So I'm ending a poll so everyone can see the results. Yeah, pretty impressive, I guess. Not so many lays off, but a lot of people are looking for a job at the moment. So now I would like to move to our next speaker, Moria. Moria is a founder and owner of Moria Rodrigue Law Office. Moria made Aliyah from Belgium, graduated from Bar-Ilan University with law degree, and after gaining experience in private law offices, she started her own law firm in 2016. So the firm specializes in real estate, international tax law, inheritance, and labor law. And Moria works a lot with Olims all over the world. She speaks Dutch, French, English, Hebrew. Wow, amazing list of languages. Moria, we are happy to have you tonight with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So I'm not in the high tech, so I just want to make sure that we see my my presentation. I'm in the law, we are less in technology. Okay, so again, thank you for having me. So I'm going to talk about the legal rights at your workplace. We can have a seminary of 3 webinars only about this subject, but I tried to do it as short as possible with the most relevant subjects, and to go over the legal procedure of the layoff. We're not going to elaborate about a lot of things because it's going to take us much more time, but we'll go to the main issues. So first of all, as you may know, when you get fired, you don't just get fired just like that. You have to follow a whole procedure. So we're going to speak about the shimua, the hearing, hoda'a mukdemet, prior notice, what you have to do once you're fired, and we're going to talk about special cases in the high tech. So we'll start with the hearing. So as you all, hopefully not all of you, but most of you know, before getting fired, the employer has to summon you for a shimua. It has to be with a reasonable notice of at least 2 or 3 days in advance. During the shimua, during this hearing, there has to be a conversation. Benefesh chafetza ubelev patuach. That's how the law says. It means with a willing mind and an open heart to genuinely listen to your arguments during the hearing. This hearing has to be also written with a written protocol, and all relevant documents must be provided in advance. So this is the technical stuff of the shimua. Now I'm going to give you some tips. By the way, during the whole presentation, I'm going to give you some golden tips that are worth a lot of money. So listen carefully to these kind of tips. So my first tip is during the shimua, do not go alone. You can take with you a friend, a relative, or a lawyer to the hearing. And if they're not available, you didn't receive the documents before, you can ask for a delay of the hearing. I mean, you can't ask for a year of a delay, but a reasonable delay is you can ask for it, and that also gives you more time to prepare your arguments. So that's a tip you can consider. Also, if the shimua doesn't go according by the book, and there are some flaws in the summon, then a letter from a lawyer that can show the flaws that happened during this of the shimua, you can cancel the hearing or even the expected layoff. So it's very important to see that it's going by the book. So after the shimua, we're going to talk now about the hoda'a mukdemet, the prior notice. So as we said, you can't just fire a person from the day to another. You need to give them a reasonable time. This time is considered in the law. They give you exactly how much time you need to give to every employee. I'm going to talk about it after, but first of all, you have to know that the employer can tell you to not use this hoda'a mukdemet, to not come to work during the hoda'a mukdemet. He can tell you go away. I don't want to see you here tomorrow, but he will have to pay you for the whole salary of the whole time. So that's also very important to understand. If they don't give you hoda'a mukdemet, they have to give you at least the salary of this days. Also, he cannot force you to use your vacation days during this hoda'a mukdemet time, unless it's done in good faith and in consideration of work needs. But anyway, it has to be at least 14 days of the notice that are not used for vacation. So now I'm going to talk about the timeline of the hoda'a mukdemet that needs to be done. So it's actually according to your seniority in your workplace. Most of high-tech people work by salary. So most of you, I guess you know it, but I'm just going to go through it quickly. So in the case of the people that don't know, if you work more than a year, you have to receive a hoda'a mukdemet, a prior notice of 1 month. If you work less than a year, then you get 1 day for the first 6 months and 2.5 days for the next 6 months. If you don't work at a salary and you work hourly, then it's a total different calculation. Until 1 year, it's 1 day per month. During the second year, it's 14 days. Through a third year, 21 days. It's a whole calculation. I'm not going to get into the details. But after 3 years, you're eligible of 1 month of hoda'a mukdemet. Now the golden tips. Or the special cases. First of all, if you are in miluim, they're not allowed to fire you during the miluim, and also not 30 days after your service, unless they receive a special permit from the employment committee of the Ministry of Defense. Also, the days of the miluim, they don't count on the days of the hoda'a mukdemet. pregnant women or women in the that are having IVF it's a topic that I can speak about for 1 hour, but I'm just going to say very shortly. By the way, if you have any questions after it, you can reach me. I'll show you my contact. So pregnant women, as you all must know, or people that are in IVF, you're not allowed to fire them with some conditions. They need to be working for 6 months at least in the same office. But what most of people don't know is that if they are getting fired, they need to get a special permit, בקשה להיתר פיטורים from משרד התמ"ת, from the זרוע העבודה משרד התמ"ת. But most Olim don't know is that you're eligible for a translator during this committee. So during this בקשה להיתר פיטורים, you can ask for an official translator to be there for you, or a lawyer as well. So that is very important to know, because you can't just get fired like this, like other people, without it. Also, you always need to check on your employment contract if you have more days of prior notice. Most high-tech companies give in their special חוזים אישיים, in their special employment contracts, much more days than what the law gives you. So if the law gives you 1 month for a year, maybe you get 2 or 3 months. This is something that you can negotiate about before you start working, and check that you have received what you have signed on since you started working there. Okay, so this is all the procedure of getting fired. Now you are fired. What now? What happens now? So the most important things is to make sure that you receive all the legal documents that you need to take with you. First document, most important one, is the מכתב אישור על סיום העסקה. It's a confirmation letter of termination of the employment. You need to receive it at least until 1 week after you have asked for it, or 2 weeks from the last day of your work. Without this letter, you will not have, you can't receive your dmei aftala, your unemployment benefit, and it's illegal not to give you this letter. So again, know your rights and fight for them if you don't have it. A second document that you need to receive is the letter of release of funds from the Kupot Gemel. It's a provident fund, according to Google Translate. I'm not sure it's really the specific translation of Kupot Gemel, but you all know what it is. It's the insurance that you have, the pension insurance and the Keren Ishtalmut. So that's also a letter that you need to receive, like a מכתב שחרור, that you can take the money out of it. Another important form that you need to ask for is the form 161. It's the employer notification to the tax authority of your layoff. And lastly, the form 106, טופס 106. You probably all know it from when you start to work. You also have to write it down. I'm sorry if it's a lot of forms, it's a bit boring, but it's important for you to understand that you need to have all these documents in order to receive your rights. ביטוח לאומי, don't we all love this very important Mossad? So also you have to make sure that the employer has transferred all the payments of the ביטוח לאומי during the period of your employment. So you can go on the ביטוח לאומי site. You have there a place that's called אזור אישי, and there you can check that all the payments has been done, that you don't have any debts there. If you have debts in ביטוח לאומי, it's really a pain in the ass. So make sure that you don't have it and that your employer had done everything that he had to be done. Also, after a month of unemployment, you have to start paying ביטוח לאומי. Not enough that you're laid off, now you have to pay as well. It's 179 shekel per month as of 2022. Every year it changes, but that's plus minus the amount you need to pay. But it's also important to know, if you are married or officially considered as a yedua b'tzibur, it's like a relationship that is known in public. and your spouse or your serious boy/slash girlfriend is insured with Bituach Leumi, you may be exempt from paying this Bituach Leumi 179 shekel per month. So that's also something that you need to check and not to pay if you don't have to. Next thing I want to discuss is the claimer money. Get your money that you need before going out of this workplace. So the first thing is pidyon yemei chufsha, redemption of your vacation days. You have vacation days that you haven't been used during your work. You were a very good worker, never went on vacation. Be careful, because you can't just accumulate it. You can't accumulate only the unused vacation days in a certain year, but you must use them during the following 2 years. Otherwise, it can be deleted. So don't forget to use your vacation days before the 2 years are up. You will not be eligible to take it as money if you haven't used it. Also, dmei havra'ah, redemption of recovery fees. After a year that you work in the same place, you are eligible to receive dmei havra'ah. Usually you receive it around July. So if you haven't received it before, or you got fired just a month before or whatever, you can ask for it. And you can also claim it retroactively up to 7 years back. So that's also very important to know. Sick days. So that according to the law, you're not eligible to receive it, but most high-tech contracts do give sick days as in their agreement. You can receive it as money at the end of when you're laid off. Also, a retirement grant. That's something that the law doesn't give you in the law, but most of the agreements do have it. And if you don't, or you're just about to start a new work, make sure that you can have those sick days and the retirement grant as one of your rights. These are like social rights that most high-tech companies did have in the past years. So make sure that you see them, that you know them, and that you get them. Also, special things about high-tech that you have that are not in the other workplace, your options. Sometimes you get options from your workplace. You have to check how much time after the resignation you can claim them. Usually it's 90 days, but you should check your contract and see until when you can use them. After this, it's done. You lost it. It's really a shame. So check it good in your contract. Also, most of you guys have signed on the confidentiality and non-competition agreement. That's also very important to advise, and because there is an important case, checkpoint case, that the judge ruled there explicitly that it's impossible to prevent a person from earning a living, and that there are limits to non-competition. You can't just say you can't work anymore in any other company in the field. There are a lot of restrictions to the non-competition clause, like for example, if you were exposed to trade secrets, or that you received a special fee in exchange for the commitment not to compete. There are a lot of specific conditions that need to be that you need to have in order to not have a non-competition clause in your contract. These are that kind of thing that you should ask a lawyer and get advice. It's not everything that you think you know is really what it is in actually. Also, always negotiate. You can negotiate almost everything in your contract, and certainly when you are getting laid off, you can. It's not the Torah Misinai, like we say. You can have a negotiation about a lot of things. So these are like the basic things about getting laid off in the high tech or in the workplace. If you have any more questions, specific questions about the things, you can contact me. Here are my email. I send also my phone, better WhatsApp. I'm not always available to answer. And again, it can be in Dutch, French, English, whatever. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Maria. Great tips, especially about negotiation. Write down the email. I saw a few relevant questions on the chat, and I think now we will move forward. Yeah, Maria, you can stop sharing your presentation. I would like to introduce the next speaker, Tamar Eisenberg Abramson. Tamar was born and raised in Jerusalem. Thanks to her parents, that made this tough decision of making Aliyah for her. With a degree in economics and passion for education, she went to be a teacher and then a founding member of Pelech Tel Aviv. It's a religious high school for girls. And today, Tamar leads community and at Rise Up. This is a startup on a mission to create a world in which anyone can enjoy financial well-being. Tamar, mic is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm supposed to share screen, right? So I don't have, it says it's been disabled. In the meantime, I guess, well, until it's fixed, I just wanted to touch on what Jonathan said. First of all, that really resonated with me. I wasn't laid off, but when we moved to Tel Aviv, my husband was looking for a job. And I want to just say about, you gave very great tips for what to do when you're in the office. I want to say that if you're looking for a job or laid off, then that's also the time to show up. It doesn't have to be at a company. It can be just, to get up, go to a library or sit at a coffee shop. I mean, we'll discuss finances in a minute, but coffee shops are very expensive today. And work at a skill, do what you like, do what you enjoy, what makes you happy. I think that those are some things that really help you throughout that journey of looking, get up, get dressed, maybe things that are obvious, but I find that that they really help. Let me see if this has been solved. Yes. Okay, great. So let me start. Okay. So like I said, hi, I'm Tamar. I'm a community lead at Rise Up. Rise Up is a startup that wants to allow anyone to enjoy financial well-being. When we say well-being, I mean, everyone has different associations, but we want it to be, like what you do in order to feel calm and energized. So,
Tamar, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Just a second. I'm not sure that everyone sees your presentation. Moria, if you can stop sharing yours, because that's what I see on the screen now. Just sorry for that. Some technical moments. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks.
Okay, so now everyone sees mine. Great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just like people eat kale to feel healthier or feel better, or do yoga to enjoy life, that's what we want money to be like. And everyone associates money to be something that is super stressful or stops us from enjoying, right? It's all about, you got to, you have to save and not enjoy or be worried all the time. And everyone can kind of write down or talk to their spouses if you're sitting together about what associations you have with money. It's generally, it's not about financial, it's not about well-being. It's about more negative connotations. And we want to kind of change that atmosphere and allow people to be happy with what they have. They say, who is happy, one who enjoys what he has and is able to see the wealth that they do have. And that's what we're on an agenda of. So today we're going to talk about 5 things you can do today to survive a recession. It's going to be pretty practical, but I'll already say that our service is even more practical than this discussion, and our community is more, and we'll talk about that soon. But I'm here to talk about these things. So first of all, let's talk about how money looks today, right? Look at that. Who doesn't get stressed from this, right? Like that's just in itself. Everyone knows that they transfer money in Bit or in Paybox or with, you manage an Excel, or you have checks or credit cards and you don't know your ins, your outs. And our goal is first things first. And what I would like to suggest to you is first things first is to have one simple picture. We can't manage things across all things. And anyone who works at a startup knows that the first thing you have is either an Asana board or a Monday board or whatever it is. It needs one place to focus and to be able to manage your things, what your expenses are, what your income is, and be able to make rational decisions from a place of knowledge and not from a place of kind of, you have this bucket and it's got holes in it and you kind of don't know where things are going. So that's the first tip I want to say. Have one simple picture, keep it simple. Make sure how you manage your money is just easy and intuitive. Some people, Excel works for them. Others, it's too much time and effort. Some people enjoy looking at their, looking at their bank account and then at their credit card and trying to manage that. There's Rise Up. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? And that's something that we can help with, and that's something that we put in the front, but just keep it simple. Our next thing is that every month is a new game. A lot of people, especially if you're going through layoffs or if you're having a difficult time financially, you can either get into debt or you see kind of your savings go down. And that's kind of something you look at, it's like blaring red, and you're like, what can I do with that situation? And we kind of want to say that's very hard to deal with debt. So that's a big number sometimes. Kind of don't know how you crawl out. Every time you think you've crawled out, you kind of go back down, right? Because of, I have the word in Hebrew, ribit, it'll come to me, interest rates. So that's, so then the interest rate kind of, brings it back down. It's very, very hard. And what we want to focus on, that every month is a new game. You start over, okay? And it kind of helps us, win that month, then you can go on to the next month. If you don't, nothing happened. We can do it again. There's always how to rise up from the situation you're in. What do I mean? I'll be even more practical. Say that this is your income this month, okay? All this green. All right. We'll talk in a second about what happens if you don't have an income. But if this is your income splits into three kinds of things. Three categories. One are your fixed expenses. Those are things that when you go and you travel to visit your family abroad, they will still go off of your bank account. You will still be paying them. It can be your rent, it can be your telecom, your Wi-Fi, installments that you have, anything that you've already committed to and is going to go down no matter what. So those are the fixed expenses, and that's kind of the easy way to remember them. No matter where you are in the world, they will be charged. You will be charged. The next thing is your recurring expenses. The recurring expenses are expenses that we all know we're going to spend. We all know we're going to go to the supermarket. We all know we're going to need some form of transportation, whether it's, birds and scooters in Tel Aviv, or if it's, the train or your personal car. We all know we're going to use it. But the difference between that and a fixed expense is one that you can control throughout the month. And so we kind of know what the average is, but in the end of the day, we can make that easy decision if we're taking the bus today or walking. And those kind of, trade-offs. Different people have different recurring expenses, right? You can have the transportation and supermarket is pretty much, most people have that, most households have it. But there can be, it's your habits, basically. It can be your takeout. It can be pharmaceuticals. It can be, your shopping. Some people have a recurring expense of shopping. So those are kind of the second category, and they're generally very behavioral, and you can control them. But it takes up a lot of your month. The third thing, what's left of your salary or your income, your monthly income, after you've taken down the fixed expenses, which you must make sure you have enough to cover, and then your regular, right, your behavioral expenses. Then you have all the rest. Then it's kind of, you're walking out in Tel Aviv and you're like, hey, what can I buy? Or what do I want? Or it happened to me today. I'm like so upset of myself. I got off the wrong stop on the bus. And then I thought that I totally deserve this croissant from Lechamim. And then I saw, another thing, and then whatever, it was a 40 shekel expense, and it's so expensive. And that's what I wanted to get back at. Restaurants are raising prices and making their portions smaller. So that's becomes a very big expense that's kind of creeping up on us. And so if you haven't noticed that yet, notice it. What we kind of did now in the office is we went on a challenge that we all got together, and we called it the Lunchbox Challenge. We have 15 people in the company who took part. And we're just bringing food from home. It's generally at Rise Up, when you work at a company that talks about finances, there's no shame in not going out in the afternoon, right? No Walt and stuff. But now it's also kind of a support system that kind of helps us, we're sharing tips and we're sharing recipes and different things. We can go on. We're going to get to that at the last part. And then you see that last little green dot on the board that's left. And that is our goal. We want to be left with something. Some families in some months are left with a small something. Some are left with a little bit of a bigger one, but that's the goal. We want to we want to finish the month when our expenses our expenses don't go over our income. And it sounds simple, but anyone who's managed it realize that it's not so much that. And if it doesn't happen this month, that's okay. Sometimes, things happen. Sometimes it's not even splurging like I had at Lechamim. It can be that, your tire is suddenly, blows, which happened to me last week. And then that's it. There's nothing to do. It's the end of the month. And I didn't know that that this will happen to my tire. So then I have to deal with that. And then nothing happened. Next month is a new month and you have to be ready to do that and have that mentality. So my thing. Okay, so every month is a new game, like I said. And the third tip I have is focus on one number. What's one number? Ooh, okay. One number is that of all the rest, that orange thing, those orange dots that I was talking about. Because once you know what your fixed expenses are, and you need to know them, what they are and how much they amount to. And once you know just about how much you're spending on your recurring expenses, what's left is what you really have to keep your eye on the ball. And you have to keep, it's like knowing how much battery you have on your phone, right? And you make decisions by what apps you open based on how much battery you have left. That's how you should treat this one number. It's that one number that at every given moment how much is left. And then once you get and once you spend it, it lowers. And then you need to kind of manage that day after day until the end of the month when, like we said, it's a new game. And I think that simplifies it and gives it, one simple picture. That's all the rest that I was talking about. The fourth tip I want to share with you today is to protect what you have. What do I mean by that? What we have in our balance account, which is our over v'shav, I hope I'm doing the right translation here. Our balance account or our checking account, right? Like in the bank, what we have in the bank, the money we have in the bank is money that in times of inflation loses its value. Okay, it in Hebrew you say is a nishchak, and we want to be able to protect it as much as possible. So, two things about savings in these times. First of all, is that you can protect your balance, which means that, or maybe that was a wrong translation. I'm thinking about that now. But anyways, to protect your balance means that there are different solutions that you can put money away from that are still. And I have another word in Hebrew, nazil, that they're still accessible, but without them staying in the checking account. Moria, do you have the word? I see you're like, sorry, this is where
liquid.
Thank you. No, liquid. Okay, make sure that right. That's so funny. Easy translation. That they're still liquid, but they're more protected. They either imitate the interest rates of the Bank of Israel. They invest in certain things that are very similar to that. Or you can just do a picadon in the bank. I have some things about that, but just be aware of that the value of the money you have there does rub off. That's not the word, but you can fill me in on that. The second thing I want to say is whatever you do decide to save for the long term, send it away. Have it automatic savings is just the way to go. It's our way to deal with behavioral, with our inclination to kind of treat ourselves at the end of the month and want us to, enjoy what we have. So instead of doing that, I suggest that at the beginning of the month, you have an automatic transfer to savings of some sum. Anything. It could be anything. It's more on the, my comment is more about the having the behavioral strength, the behavioral habit to do it, more than how much it is, because a day will come, like Jonathan mentioned, that everything will be much better. And then once you have that muscle already of moving money for a later time, then you can just always make it bigger or smaller if you need to. You can always lower or make that sum larger, but the habit is the important thing. So whatever you save, just send it away, keep it away from your balance. It's very hard not to treat it not to use it when you want to. My fifth and last tip is that we're all in this together. And I think that that's an important thing to say, especially in this forum. Like I said, my parents made the decision for me and I'm forever in debt to them for making that decision for me. I can get emotional about it every time I speak. I see what aunts and uncles of mine had to go through when they made Aliyah, and I think it's the bravest decision you can do for your family and for your kids. But it's hard, and I know that it's hard and it's lonely. And I've seen my, especially my mother, go through that, being alone for many years until her siblings joined her. But they did in the end, so don't lose hope. And I think that we're all in this together means that we all need to talk about it, and that's what this webinar is about. But it can't stop here. We need to talk about these things. We need to not be ashamed to discuss it, because doing that gives knowledge. This is a cute emoji of like, oh, that everyone should kind of, be in there, sitting on their couches and be like, yeah, that's right. That's what I want to have. I'll give an example of how we do it at Rise Up. First of all, our service has people in it, real people that help along with the automatic service that does everything I mentioned for you. Our service really has people that you can ask questions, like that they're on your side. They're not the bank. They're not there to kind of see what they can make, how they can take advantage of you. They're really there to help you make financial decisions. Decisions like, I need to buy a car. What's the best way to do it? How can I, what tips do you have for me to, finish in a positive cash flow? All these things are things that our team can help you with, and they're inside the service. But more so than that, and that's where my job comes in, we have a Facebook community. It's called in Hebrew, but I want to calm everyone down. It's very basic. Most of it is very basic Hebrew, but also it doesn't have to be in this community. I'm encouraging it in the Nevo Network and anywhere you can. Just be open to talk about these topics. Our community has built an incredible support system for people who thought that they were alone with their money or with their financial situation, and they realized that really everyone is concerned, or everyone has a concern, and that we can help each other get through it. I want to just give one example that I did not prepare, and then I'll be finished. I didn't prepare. Oh, I even put it in. I did prepare it last night. It was last night. Last night, this fellow, Ishai, posted a post in our Facebook group that said that he discovered that he deserves money from Bituach Leumi, and he didn't know it. And it was this kind of like way like this of how he deserved, how he figured out that basically Bituach Leumi owes him nothing less than over 16,000 shekel. Now that's the difference in recessions. It's money that's just laying on the floor, waiting for us to pick it up. And I think that, what happened to the community is that it exploded. It went, it reached, whoever knows Facebook, it's like, it's very hard to reach these numbers. This reached over 50% of our community. He got in crazy engagement. People wrote, thank you. People wrote, I went to do it. Bituach Leumi contacted us and said, what are you doing? You're making us, you're crashing our phone lines. But, this is power, knowledge is power. And you need to be brave enough to ask questions, or to share what worked for you or what didn't work for you, so we can help. And I think that for me was a big inspiration to come to you today and speak about this, because it was just so live. We have every day, we have tens of posts that people help each other here and there, but this was just unbelievable. And I think it just shows the power of what community can do. And there's a great community here that we can use in English or in any language to discuss these topics. So that's it on my end, and I'm happy to share and answer any questions. And I'm available at tamar@riseup.co.il. And thank you very much.
So much. Thank you, Tamar. Literally the first thing tomorrow, calling Bituach Leumi, asking how much they owe me, just to make sure. Great. So I think now we going to move to the questions. I see some relevant questions, but before we're doing that, just a reminder, please feel free to share in a chat another topics that you would like us to prepare the session. And again, it might be some CV tips, interviews, or maybe specific field like R&D, marketing, because we have a huge group of volunteers, Masa fellows, Nevo alumni that willing to have, and like each of us went through this process, in their first Aliyah years. So the first question I would like to address to Moria, this is the question regarding the laying off. So I will just read. And over a year, they laid me off. despite the fact that I'm in the process of the IVF treatment. What would you recommend during negotiation process? So there is a person who were laid off in the IVF treatment process.
So I didn't understand if she's already been laid off or she's just getting a hearing. But anyways, I'll answer both ways. Again, it's illegal to fire a person, a woman who is having an IVF procedure. In order to get this issue, this permission to fire, you need to get a special issurim from the Misrad HaTamat, from the Zroa Avoda, from Misrad HaTamat. And like I said in my presentation, you are allowed during this hearing also to bring a translator. If the process has not been done correctly, you can sue them. You can sue your workplace. There is a Bet Din LaAvoda. It's a special courtroom that deals exactly with this kind of situations. And if it wasn't by the book, you have a very strong case.
Great, thank you so much. I think, Jonathan, the next question is for you. You talked a lot about the big corporates. So there is a question. So to survive, we should apply to smaller companies that are not high-tech, such as agencies?
No, I don't necessarily think that's true. Again, I think that at the end of the day, and I also resonates with what Tamar said at the beginning of, doing things that you're passionate about and that you enjoy doing. But still, I don't think it necessarily matters if you're joining sort of non-high-tech companies or high-tech companies or big high-tech companies or small high-tech companies. The fact of the matter is, again, all these companies are going to be going through layoffs now. It's just the fact of the matter. And again, just show up, try to do as much as you can to make sure that you're not one of those that are laid off. But if you are, don't take it too personally, and look for a new role. When you're looking for a new role, then I would recommend looking for companies that are bigger, that have recently raised money. Bigger does not mean that they've recently raised money, by the way. So make sure that you really sort of understand, and you can feel free to reach out to me if you can't find that information. I just think that that'll be a little bit safer, or super early companies that just raised money, but there's very few opportunities at those companies usually, and it's hard to get in. But if you can, then that works as well.
Great, thank you so much. Another question, I guess, Yana, for you. Is it the good time to switch jobs, even if current job is stable place, but just feel I can do better?
It's an interesting question. Look, I mean, I think nobody knows your value as much as you do. And so I think that, when you're looking to potentially change roles, if there's a way for you to do it sort of under the radar and clandestinely, so you don't have to necessarily leave your current position before you understand if you have other options available, which I think is what you should do regardless, right? Not just in the time of a recession. Then I think that that's obviously ideal because I think that even if you think you can do better, and I'm sure you can, whoever's asking this question, I'm sure you're amazing. I just wouldn't underestimate the state of the market right now, which is that people are definitely not looking to hire new people just because. For companies that have a lot of money and are trying to grow quickly, they still are, but there are very few companies like that right now. That's just the truth. So, look around, see what's out there, try to do it on your personal email address and not on your company's computer, and see if you can, start any conversations. But otherwise, I wouldn't quit my job before having another one in today's market.
Great, thanks a lot. I think there is a question for Tamar, for you, or for Maria. Is there anywhere we can check if Bituach Leumi owns us money?
Did everyone see that sigh? No, not really. Bituach Leumi is Bituach Leumi is very difficult to understand what your thing is, what you deserve. That is why community comes in place, because when someone finds something out, then you can do the same. After this post, I found out, I mean, I can share some links at the end, but I found out just different perks. Like I was pregnant and I worked at 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. So I deserve something maybe. So I gave it in. Once you know what you deserve and you find the link, it's very easy to fill out. But it's hard to kind of source what your profile is and therefore what you deserve. Maybe that's what me as a person, by the way, not as Tamar, not as Rise Up. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I know that for me it's difficult, but maybe Maria has a more official answer.
More.
So, like I said, there is in the atar of the Bituach Leumi on the side, there is a Ezor Ishi, a personal area. There you can see a lot of information, of personal information. So first of all, start there and see what you have and if you have any debts. Because by the way, if you have debts for the Bituach Leumi, they're going to hunt you down. So make sure you don't have any debts for them. They give you money, but if you owe them, it's not a nice play. So always check the Ezor Ishi, what is your situation. And besides that, there are perks that you need, like this, like what Tamar said, are like things that you knew when you were a student, they owed you because you were pregnant, all these kind of things. There is not a place that says exactly where you can find it. It's asking people, community, and everything.
Great, thank you so much. I see a few specific questions. Feel free to reach out to me personally on LinkedIn, and like a general answer for a few questions. How to land, the first job. It's all about the connections, all about networking, even though Jonathan mentioned that it's like all the VC and hiring managers are busy now, but still go to events, add us on LinkedIn, try to build a community around your specific field or the vertical you're working in. Just a few last minutes to ask the questions. Feel free to drop in a chat. I saw a few hands, but unfortunately we won't be able to give you a mic, but I will be more than happy to read your question in chat. So regarding the follow-up, we will share the presentations, we will share the links. And before we are saying you bye, I just want to share another link. This is a document where what you can feel, and we will try to help you with job opportunities, with the job search process. This is initiative of Nevo Fellows, so feel free, it's in a chat. Please feel it's very helpful. Let me see if we have there are questions about LinkedIn, like how we can connect. I just write down any of ours, name, last name, and I guess it's pretty unique. You will find and just connect. I think that's it. Thank you so much. We are entering a very special season, very special month of the year. We are close to Hanukkah, and I want personally that this month of Kislev will bring us a lot of miracles and only good, positive vibes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our speakers, Moria, Tamar, Jonathan, and everyone who helped us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.